All right. Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're dialing in from, and welcome to today's Data+Women Germany event. Before we start, as always, let me say a few words about Data+Women Germany. So we are me, Heidi Kalber, and together with my co-host Lea Zimmer, we have been leading Data+Women Germany for the past couple of years. I am a Tableau ambassador and senior consultant at Woodmark, and I founded Data+Women Germany in late 2019 and have been joined by Lea last year, and we've been running it together ever since. Data+Women is an initiative that is aimed at offering women a community all around their work in data. We want to offer them a platform where they can share their knowledge and experiences, celebrate their successes, and while the initiative originated from within the community, from within the Tableau community, we are open to people from any and all backgrounds. As such, we are not only welcoming women, we are aimed at people of all genders, because we are all united under the one common goal of advancing diversity in the data community. As such, we hope to offer a platform to all minorities, whether that be gender or age or language or ethnicity or academical background or any other kind. We want to help you find a secure foothold in the world of data, build your network, and discover new opportunities. Emily Kuhn said it best when she said that it's data plus women, it's not data minus men. So what do we have in store for you today? We are joined today by our guest speaker, Melissa Hill Dees, who will be presenting her session, Am I on Mute? Melissa is a Salesforce MVP. She's 6 times Salesforce certified, has 15 years experience as a nonprofit executive, and over 10 years leveraging Salesforce. Melissa is all about automating what can be automated so that humans have more time to do what cannot be automated. Melissa is also a founding partner at Hands-On Connect and a nonprofit community group leader. She serves both on the boards of Amplify and Toolbag USA. She's a co-founder of Nonprofit Dreaming and Food Force, and she recently completed her MBA in digital entrepreneurship. Sounds like you're a busy woman, Melissa. But in her free time, she advocates still for do more good and equality for all, and she especially enjoys traveling with her husband and her daughter. Today, Melissa will be talking about a feeling many of us know only too well, participating in a meeting or discussion and thinking, am I on mute? Melissa mentioned this in the networking part of our November event last year, where we had Alice Feng. And I asked Melissa to share her thoughts and her experiences with us today, and I'm very glad to have her. So we will be having a Q&A as always after the session, but also during. So please do drop any questions you have for Melissa in the Q&A box, and I will be relating them to her. And after the Q&A, I again will be announcing our upcoming events, and I hope you will all join us for some networking to exchange your own experiences with Melissa, myself, Lea, and all the other attendees. So with that, all that's left to say for me is it's absolutely fantastic to have you all with us. Have a lovely evening or whatever time of day it is in your region, and over to you, Melissa.
Thanks so much, Heidi. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Excuse me, let me find my right place to share my screen with you. Take me just a second. All right, and hopefully you're seeing the right screen. Are you?
Yeah,
okay,
looks great.
Thank you. So yes, in fact, I am excited to talk about Am I on Mute? I actually presented this the very first time in 2018 at Dreamforce, and it has evolved and changed like we all do, right, over the course of the last few years. And so I want to just go through some thoughts and ideas and share some things with you from my experience. And hopefully when we're done today, we will have identified what the problem is, discuss the solution, and do some Q&A. I really love live events because I appreciate that interaction, and it's hard for me sometimes to present to what I feel like is myself, my camera, and not be in a live setting, you know, face to face with someone, because I'm used to hearing the gasps and the and the noises that we all make when we hear a presentation. So feel free to ask questions. Heidi's going to monitor that for me, and I ask her specifically to interrupt me with any of those questions that might come up. So just to give you a little bit of an introduction, this is kind of my personal timeline. I don't usually share how ancient I really am, but when I was born in 1961, the picture that you see there is a picture from the team at IBM in 1961. So you see there was one woman, and undoubtedly she was a secretary. In 1979, when I graduated from from high school, that was the team at Microsoft. So, you know, we've doubled the representation there. There are 2 women in that picture. In 1998, all through that, the number of women in tech was growing all through that time period, right? In 1998 was the height of women in tech. From there, the number of women in tech started decreasing. So it's an interesting conundrum to find that the research that I found, the data that I've looked at, they don't have a definitive causation. There are some correlations, but not causation. In 1979, I went to university and immediately jumped into computer science because that's what smart girls did at that point in time. And they were teaching me to write in COBOL and Fortran and teaching me to be a developer. And no one ever let me know that there was any other choice in technology besides being a developer at that point in my life. And you've known me for 5 minutes now. Can you really see me in an 8x8 cube all by myself all day long writing code? So not me. So I wound up going around the world and back to get to technology, but doing sales, doing nonprofits, marketing, all sorts of statistics and things that were not really hardcore technology. Had the opportunity 6 years ago to come on board with our small tech startup. We have a virtual team meeting once a week, and we all work remotely. We've always done that long before COVID. So for the last 6 years, right? When none of us are even in the same city, although our founder is in Tampa. I saw Kate or someone is from Tampa. But we work on this team meeting every week. We hash out improvement. We talk about support and bugs and whatever gets on the agenda. And no one would ever accuse me of being timid or quiet. And we have a very flat organizational structure. So one day the discussion centered on how we could leverage our product to meet some requirements from a customer. And we really weren't having very much success. And suddenly the answer dawned on me, and I shared with the team. And the conversation just rolled right along with no response to my solution, and the meeting ended. And I texted my colleague, my female colleague, and I was like, Libby, am I on mute? And she was like, no, I heard you. I was so perplexed. We have, you can see in the little diagram that I did, a very diverse team. We are 50% women. We are immigrants. We are all colors. You know, we have one guy on the team that we might consider, you know, the old white guy on the team. So one out of that core team. So I was just incredulous that no one heard me and no one responded to me. So the more I thought about that situation, the more concerned I was that our team was lacking a critical skill that would really hinder our success. So what is the problem? What I found out, and what I didn't know then, was that the problem was unconscious bias. And there's a long technical definition, but researchers suggest that unconscious bias occurs automatically as the brain makes snap judgments based on past experiences and background. And because it's unconscious, you don't even know you're doing it, right? So although my colleagues physically heard me, they didn't cognitively hear me. So unconscious bias kind of equals that cognitive shortcut based on past experience to make assumptions. And so in order to disrupt unconscious bias, we have to disrupt those cognitive shortcuts. And it actually works. So not long after this Am I on Mute incident, as it shall ever be known, I went to Dreamforce. And Art Ordoki is one of my allies. And I happened to have a chance to have a face-to-face conversation with him. We had known each other a long time. And I said, you know, what, this happened. And Art said, what? We don't do that, do we? He really, was completely not certain that they did that at all. We went through Dreamforce, came back, had a couple more team meetings. He called me one day and he was like, Melissa, I'm so sorry. We do that. So once he heard and realized, he couldn't get past it. Then he heard us again, right? So it became an incredible ally in stopping a meeting literally and saying, hey, wait, did you hear what Melissa said, right? Because these men that had worked together in the past, that's the ideas they were used to hearing, that's the totally unconscious, they weren't being intentionally leaving you out. I mean, and I know that happens too, but in this case, it wasn't a situation of intention. It was just unconscious bias. So that is the problem. You think, how could that happen? And how could you not hear someone? I want us to do a quick little exercise.
Melissa, before we delve into the exercise, would you mind giving the non-Salesforce people a bit of background on what Dreamforce is?
Oh, sure. So I started to say the last time I went to Dreamforce, it was a huge gathering of 170,000 plus Salesforce practitioners, users, customers, partners in San Francisco once a year, usually in September, October, November. It's a huge conference, 4 days generally, pre-COVID, where there's an opportunity to meet everyone and everything. Mark Benioff, of course, is there. The founder, Parker Harris, his co-founder. Lots of learning, lots of networking, lots of parties, no sleep. And probably the single best way to get to know a ton of folks that are related to Salesforce that you'll ever want. I haven't been to a Tableau conference, but I'm assuming that it's a Tableau conference on steroids.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. Thank you.
Have you been to Dreamforce, Heidi?
No, I have not. But I mean, pretty much everything you described was on point for Tableau conference, just like a tenth of the size.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. So from an exercise standpoint, I'm going to show this little video and I hope that you all can hear the sound. So I'm going to start it and I may stop it right quickly just to make sure that you can hear the sound. Or Heidi, if you'll let me know if you don't hear the sound, because I want you to take a look. It's about 1.5 minutes.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make? The correct answer is 15. But did you also notice the dark team's uniform color change, the roof's color change, the dark team's gender change, or the moonwalking gorilla? In case you missed any of these, here it is again.
First, did anybody notice any of those things?
I'll give the audience a second to get their comments in. I did see the gorilla because I know a similar video, but none of the rest. So we do have, so some people noticed like 2 out of the 4 things, but maybe got the numbers wrong. Some didn't see anything, or got the number correct, but none of the rest. Yeah, so most people saw 1 or 2 of the things. Yeah.
Awesome. And so let's watch now that you know, because you'll see all of it happen. And so now once you've seen it, if you ever see that video again, you will always see it. I can't unsee the gorilla, which to me is the thing that so many people miss the first time around. It's like, how can you possibly miss a gorilla walking through the crowd? But because you're concentrating on your task, right, which is counting the number of passes that the team in white is making, you completely miss everything else. So that to me is such a great example of unconscious bias. And the fact that once it's been revealed, right, you can't unsee it. So in fact, my friend Art, my colleague, has told me since, he's like, it's terrible because now I can't not hear people. I hear them and I have to point out that other people aren't listening because now I'm aware and now I've heard it. So what a simple solution to disrupting unconscious bias. So I want to look at a couple of other solutions now that we've identified the problem a little bit. So my very first ally was my dad. And I was really lucky that he never made me feel disappointed that I wasn't a boy, right? He taught me how to play basketball and how to gap spark plugs. I always said he gave me his red hair and I gave him his gray hair. And he was the very first ally that I had in the world, who was always encouraging me, believed I could do anything I wanted to do. My husband, I always tell people, he has been the best ally in a supportive role. Heidi mentioned I just finished my MBA in December. I just submitted the final edits for a book that I'm writing a couple of weeks ago. I do a lot of things. And if my husband didn't do the things that he does, I would never be able to do the things that I do. So there are probably people in your life that are your allies that you need to be aware and thank on a daily basis. So I do my husband every day and always include him in my presentations. There are also allies in the community. And that's one of the great things. I was talking to Heidi earlier before the meeting, and we were talking about the Tableau community, and the Salesforce community is similar. There are other women in the community who will support you, who will help promote you. That's one of the things, if you follow me on Twitter and you do anything, I'm going to support you, I'm going to retweet you, I'm going to do everything I can to amplify your voice in the community, because that is a way that I can be an ally, even though I'm a woman too. So Megan Hyman was a great ally and had me actually write about my Am I on Mute experience. And that's the way that it became a presentation that's asked for again and again and again. In fact, I'm presenting this as a panel at Northeast Streaming in April and talking with one of our male allies in the Salesforce community, with a couple of women that have similar Am I on Mute stories, because if we can share those stories and make people cognizant, it can be incredibly helpful. So we've talked about allies, we've talked about what we want to do there. The Additionally, in terms of the solution, we want to be sure that we recognize if we're not hearing someone else, right? So we can be our own ally. And I'm certainly not quiet or timid or introverted, but there are some people who are. And in that case, I often try to speak up on their behalf, to be the ally because I'm louder and maybe will be heard a little bit better. And then also to recruit the male allies that we may have. Are there questions? Yes, or say if you have questions, please feel free, because I know that can often be a hard thing to have a conversation with a colleague, especially a male colleague, to explain what's going on. I don't know, maybe it's not difficult. Maybe it was just for me being, an older lady from the South who were always such people pleasers. It's hard to disrupt and be disruptive. But I have never regretted having that conversation with Art because it made all of the difference in the world and what we were able to accomplish in our company. Diversity is where innovation starts. And so it's all great to have that diversity in the room, but if you don't hear that diversity, then you can't leverage it to really innovate. My slides are doing something strange here. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can unshare and get where I need to be. Okay, sorry. So just in a bit of recapping, right? So the best ways to tackle unconscious bias: unmute yourself, be an ally for other people, recruit allies to your side. And you will be amazed at the men that are out there that are glad to be your ally. They just don't know how to do that. And so by having the conversation with them, you'll actually give them a way to do that. I'd love to take some questions. If anybody has anything, questions.
I think we don't have any questions from the audience right now. So please, everybody, again, feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A. If you can't find the Q&A, drop them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that as well.
So if you are on Salesforce's Trailhead, I put together a little Am I on Mute trail mix that has several Trailhead modules that talk about different parts and pieces of working through issues, diversity, equity, inclusion in your workday. At Melissa Hill Dees is me on Twitter, is me on LinkedIn, is me everywhere on social media. And then my email address, if you ever want to have the conversation, if you ever want more information to talk about anything, please feel free. I'm always happy and excited to hear the success stories, as well as the drama and the trauma of trying to be heard in what is statistically a male-dominated workplace. I just did just working on a new presentation about interviewing, right? So wearing pearls to a technical interview. And statistically, you are probably going to be interviewing with a man. 65+% of developers and architects are male. So chances are good. How do you have the self-confidence to do that interview? How do you connect with them and create an ally in them, in that interviewer? How do, excuse me, how do you overcome any gaps that there may be just in understanding each other? Again, statistically, and you all are the data people, so you know this, I'm sure, but if a man has 3 out of 10 qualifications, he will apply for a job. If a woman has 9 out of 10 qualifications, she'll say, oh no, I can't apply, I'm not qualified. And so increasing that pipeline is so critical and want to encourage women especially and underrepresented voices to get into that pipeline. Go in there with self-confidence, interview with self-confidence, apply. What's the worst thing they can do? Not interview you? You haven't lost anything. So love to hear any thoughts you all have on how we can help unmute underrepresented voices.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. I loved your last comment about women not applying to things because they feel they're not qualified. I always tell female professionals in my network to apply anyway. Like, don't sort yourself out, give them an opportunity to not invite you, and they'll decide that anyway. So that was a super interesting conversation. We did have a question from Amy. So Amy asks, could you expand a bit on in what ways people can be allies, or what you would suggest to male colleagues that they do as an ally?
So, and that's a great question. I think the single best way is just to help make sure that your voice is heard. Like I say, once, and it may be easier for a male colleague, if you have one male colleague in particular that you feel comfortable talking to and to share, what's happening with, then if he shares that information with other male colleagues, sometimes they're better at receiving that information from a male colleague. So if he's willing to do that on your behalf to be an ally, then that can be incredibly helpful. If he's not comfortable doing that, just having him speak up on your behalf in a meeting, which, hate to think that we need to do that at this point in our lives, but but if that's what it takes to get your voice heard and to get people comfortable with realizing that you're part of the solution, and so they need to hear what you're saying, then once that gets started, so Art's no longer my colleague, he's not here anymore, but my team doesn't not hear me anymore either, because he really trained them to hear me while he was with us as a colleague. So those would be the two big ones that I would suggest. Anytime they can support you, anytime they can, I don't know if you saw Hidden Figures, but if you remember in the movie when the male character who was in charge handed the chalk to the woman who had really done all the work, and she stood up in front of the committee and wrote everything on the board. That was a level of allyship, because he could have done it. He could have just stood up and explained it like it was his idea, but he didn't. He literally, and to me, handing that piece of chalk to her was just an exciting moment. So giving you the opportunity to speak and to explain your thoughts and ideas is another great way. Promoting your ideas, retweeting you on Twitter. Charlie Isaacs, if you know him from Salesforce, is a wonderful ally at doing that. Anything that you've got going, whether you're presenting or you've done a certification or you've accomplished something, he will retweet and has such a broad audience. Eric Dreschfield, has thousands and thousands of followers, and he will do the same. So always happy to think up more ideas. And that's one of the things about having the male allies on a call like this. They are good to suggest ways that they can help.
Well, thank you so much. One question that I would have as a follow-up on that is, how can we identify who will be an ally and who will, I don't know, not?
Well, and that is probably a little bit more difficult, right? I encourage you to start with colleagues that you already know well and have a good rapport and working relationship with, to have that conversation. And from there, some of it is being aware on our part, right? So we as women need not to have an unconscious bias against men and what they are, or even a conscious bias sometimes, because you'll see who, once you start looking, you'll see who is supportive that way. You'll notice the things, like I say, like in Hidden Figures, you know, where that wasn't the point of the movie, right? They weren't trying to dispel unconscious bias, but because that was where my thought process was, you know, he was obviously had learned to be a great ally. And that's the thing too, right? So someone who may not think of themselves as an ally maybe just hasn't learned how to be one yet. So, but I would start with those closest to you. You know, or if it's someone on your same level, or maybe your immediate supervisor, if they're male, and you can have that conversation from the standpoint even of ROI, right? So the return on investment, they've made an investment in you, but if they're not listening to any of your thoughts, if they're not hearing your thoughts and ideas, then they're not getting the return on that investment. So, you know, sometimes putting it into a language that is more business oriented helps as well.
I love that, the monetary angle, selling them, my opinion. That's really cool. We do have a question from Tanya, and she asks, how does one overcome the worry of being annoying when you are the only woman asking questions or participating in the conversation?
And I'm an incredibly annoying person, so I don't know if I know the answer to that question. My mother tells me that when I was a tiny little girl, my question was always why. I asked that question today. I was talking to some developers and administrators, and we were trying to figure out a solution to what shouldn't be a problem. And I'm like, why doesn't it work this way? Why can't we change this? Why can't we do this? And so, yes, but what I try and think is, would I be annoying if I were not a woman? Right? So I don't know, you know, I work with a wide variety of people, and there are people of all different genders and races and roles that are incredibly annoying to me personally. But I think that we as women worry about being annoying, whereas other people may not worry so much about being annoying. They just need the answers that they need and don't worry what other people think. And the older I get, the less I worry about what other people think, and the more I concern myself with getting the work done that I need to get done and finding the answers that I need to find.
Love that. Thank you. Yeah.
I hope that helps. I know I can be an annoying person because I am the person that's like, well, why can't we do that? People don't want to have to think that hard.
Yeah, in my experience, like from a viewpoint of someone providing business services and being paid to help people, I always try to ask questions, like as many questions as I can, as early on as possible, because that's when I know the least. So that's when I'm most, like, it's most reasonable to ask many questions, and B, it establishes that I will question anything the client asks of me. So that helps. And in my experience, I know that asking why repeatedly can come across as like kind of aggressive. So I try to rephrase by saying like, okay, what made you to decide to do it that way? Or what is the reasoning behind your requirement? So also kind of seems more philosophical. So I've made good experiences with that. Yeah.
And for what it's worth, if you look up the 5 whys, you know, there is actually a program. In fact, it's included in my book because I really like that, to distill. You have to ask why 5 times to be able to distill something down to the real reason. So that's not annoying. That's legitimately a strategy for discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So one more question on allyship. I don't know, like how can we identify who we need to be an ally to. Like if we notice that, or if we don't notice people who are not being noticed, like how can we step forward and say, you, I will elevate you, even if they don't ask for that, maybe.
Right. So personally, and I know I miss people, right? But personally, one of the things that I have adopted, and this is just from the social media standpoint, like I said, because I work in a very small company. If a woman follows me on Twitter, I follow her back. I don't follow all the men back, but I follow every woman back. The same on LinkedIn. If a woman wants to connect on LinkedIn, I automatically connect on LinkedIn. Then, and I don't sit down and read social media like my mother does, like a book, you know, she reads Facebook every night like it's a novel. And I don't do that, but I do try to make sure, like I say, to hit the high points in any of those women that I'm following in their careers. So if you post that you got this certification, or you post you're speaking this place, or you post you found the answer to a problem that you were looking for, you found a solution, then I'm going to try and retweet that with a comment, right? To be able to have other people hear your voice a little bit louder, at least the few thousand followers that I have. Internally, like I said, because we're a small company, I do try and give my female colleagues and teammates the opportunity to take on new projects. So I'm one of those people that I'm bad to just, oh, I can do this in 5 minutes and get it done, right? But that doesn't help promote the skills of someone else on the team. And so sometimes it's worth it taking 10 minutes and having someone else that maybe is junior or younger or on the way up actually get in there and do the job. One other way that I have found is a very informal mentoring situation. You know, if you reach out to me and you'd like for me to review your resume, or you would like for me to, just talk to you about the possibilities in the ecosystem, because you don't have to be a developer. You don't have, there's so many other jobs to be in technology these days, that I'm happy to do that. I also volunteer with some of the organizations that do certification preparation with underrepresented voices. So Pep Up Tech and PyTap and those organizations. And I almost feel guilty because I'm excited to meet those young people that are so ambitious that they are willing to learn this and get out there and put themselves out there. And I want to promote them. And so getting to know them as a volunteer is a great advantage for me. And then to be able to promote those folks that I come into contact with that way.
I love that, especially like the informal mentoring bit. So to anyone in the audience who doesn't have someone like Melissa to reach out to, do reach out to Melissa. That's one thing. Or you can also find mentors on, especially female mentors, which I know can be difficult in the tech space, on Coffee Code Break, and I will drop the link in the chat in any second. So anyone who's been to our February event, that's the website I'm talking about. All right, it looks like we don't have that many other questions right now. Melissa, tell us about your book.
So my book is Accelerating Impact Using Salesforce for Nonprofit Cloud. And so specifically working with nonprofits, helping them. Most nonprofits are small. They are not the Greenpeaces and of the world, or the Red Crosses of the world. They are small nonprofits. 90% of the small to medium nonprofits that I work with don't have a dedicated IT professional in their workforce, let alone a dedicated Salesforce administrator. So this book is based on the certification for nonprofit cloud consultant, but to be able to give some use cases, not just the dry technical, here's how you install and implement and configure, but what those use cases might look like for nonprofits, for fundraising, for program management, for volunteer management. And even there is a section on Tableau and using Tableau, and well, and I was excited about, like I said, the visualization that Tableau gives, because as a nonprofit executive, you don't care how the data comes, you don't care how it's collected, where it lives, what it does, you just want to see the impact that you're having. And that's what your donors want to see. So being able to use the templates that Tableau provides for free, I thought that was an important piece to include in the book and to let folks know that that's available. I probably should have gotten you, Heidi, to help me on that piece of the book. But yeah, so I'm excited. It should be out the end of the month, and hopefully it's going to be an aid for anybody that's either looking to get their certification as a nonprofit cloud consultant, or someone that is the default administrator for a nonprofit organization to use Salesforce.
Cool. Well, congratulations on publishing your own book, and best of luck for the launch.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so it looks like nobody's coming forth with any questions right now. So maybe let us tell you about our upcoming events. We do have one event coming up, which will be next month. So again, a Wednesday. It will be on April 27th, and we are joined by Adiomisola Adegeye, and she will talk about what happened to her when she pivoted to data analytics and what you can learn from that. So RSVP either using the QR code or using the link, and I'll be happy seeing all of you at our next event in April. If you want to be a speaker at any point, do reach out to me as well. If you don't know what you want to talk about, I'm happy to coach you on that, to look what could be a topic for you. So if you want to dip your toe into public speaking, this is a safe space. Please get in touch. All right. And with that, all I can say is a big thank you, Melissa. It's been super interesting listening to your story and to all you learned and all that you had to share. And I hope that everyone will join us for some networking. I will stop the recording in about a minute, and everybody who's keen to stick around, please join us. I will ask you to rejoin the meeting as a panelist so that we can get in touch and exchange experiences.